All right, so for our last segment of today, we're going to talk about the NBA Finals. It's going on right now between the Heat and the Nuggets. My boy Jimmy Buckets, he's going crazy. My favorite basketball player of all time because he did the one thing that I've always strived to do in my life, and that is go on a date
Leave
with Selena Gomez.
Chicago.
What?
Oh,
What did you say?
I said leave Chicago.
Well, I mean, two for two, I guess. Anyway, the NBA. We're gonna talk about the NBA. We're gonna make a little video talking about comparing the NBA and the NFL. We're gonna talk about some things that the NFL can learn from the NBA. So me and McConnell, we brainstormed a list, mostly McConnell because he's the NBA guy. I just watch the Bulls lose a game and then I don't watch basketball until the playoffs. But let's talk about some things that the NBA does better than the NFL. First of all, we talked about the draft lottery. Now, I've I've kind of debated the idea of a draft lottery in the NFL before, but the more that I think about it, I think the more that I like it. The more that I think this would eliminate tanking, this would eliminate, a lot of the bullshit that goes on trying to get trying to get better draft picks, and I think it would also make the draft more of a spectacle. I think the NFL draft is already the biggest spectacle of any sports draft in the world, but I think it would make it that much better. So, what do you think would be the pros and cons of an NFL draft lottery to determine the draft order every year?
Yeah, I think the biggest pro is the lottery gets rid of tanking. Not gets rid of, but it helps to reduce tanking. And in the NBA, the reason why they have to do that is because the first overall pick is so much better than everybody else most years. Like, right? Like,
Yeah.
imagine if there wasn't a draft lottery and you had Victor Wembanyama just as a player, right? That would be like, if you're comparing it to the NFL, it would be like you have Andrew Luck going in the draft, and then the next best player in the draft is Anthony Richardson. And you're like that's how big the gap would be. And so everyone would be like all
Well,
in
here's a
on
here's a
getting the
great
number one.
example. Here's a great example. The gap is Joe Burrow or Chase Young. I mean, who would you rather have?
Well, I mean, like you look at it now, and it's like Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert.
Yeah. But I'm saying that was
Yeah,
the top two of that draft. You know what I'm saying? Like at the
yeah,
time,
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
everybody had top two.
Whereas like everyone wanted Burrow, everyone
Yeah.
wanted Trevor Lawrence, right? Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson.
Exactly. No, perfect.
Like
Perfect, dude.
everyone wanted that number one overall pick. And this last year, I think it was very clear the number one overall pick was not nearly as valuable. I mean, we saw the Texans win a game at the end of the year. Shout out to the Texans for doing that to help the Chicago Bears. But
Appreciate
like,
y'all for real.
how much better was Bryce Young than CJ Stroud? Now, I have no problem with anybody that says Bryce Young's better. I personally had CJ Stroud as my number one, but pretty close.
I mean,
would
there was a
say.
reason there was a debate up until draft day about who the number one overall pick was going to be. I mean, there was a lot of people that had
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, like that. So, um, but do you think that in the case of a draft lottery, right? So we take the NBA does it. All the teams that don't make the
Don't make the
playoffs,
playoffs. Yeah.
yeah, be go in the lottery. So do you think, let's just say a disaster scenario, like a team like the Steelers, right, or the Jets, who were mediocre throughout the whole year. God forbid they win the draft lottery. Do you think that is just an unfair advantage to have this mediocre team get this giant asset, or how do you think that shapes up?
I do think it's unfair. I just like I wouldn't be pro draft lottery in the NFL just because getting that number one overall pick in the NFL, right? If you have Patrick Mahomes, if you have, one of these guys and you still got the number one overall pick,
Yeah,
you would just be able to trade him. Like, because think about it. Patrick Mahomes gets injured this year. Chiefs
Chiefs are
probably aren't
cooked.
making the playoffs.
Yeah,
They win the lottery. Oh, they get Caleb Williams and they just trade him for an absurd amount of
they're set
assets.
for years.
Like, it's just
Yeah,
like, it just wouldn't be worth it because there's too many players, right? Like, let's say you already have maybe the number one player. I thought the best player in last year's draft was Will Anderson, right? Let's say
yeah,
he was the consensus number one, right? And you're a team, you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have TJ Watt, you already have the best edge rusher in the NFL.
yeah.
You could still draft Will Anderson and then you would just be stupid overpowered. Every position outside of quarterback, you need more than one.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like you would just automatically, your team would just become stupid good. And I think other teams, like we already see teams struggle to rebuild, like drastically struggle because they can't get a quarterback. if you go 0-16 and you can't draft a new quarterback, now 0-17,
Yeah.
it would be
What like okay,
brutal.
I saw the results of the draft lottery. I know San Antonio won. What team record-wise was the worst in the NBA this year?
I believe it was the Detroit Pistons, and I
And don't
think
they
they
have like
had
the
the
third
fifth
pick?
pick. They have
But
the
they have
fifth pick.
they have the fifth pick? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my
Hold on.
God.
I gotta look it up. I think it was the Pistons were the worst.
My point is that if you're the worst team in the league, you should get help to get one of the best players in the draft. So that would be my only objection to where it's like, hey, these really really struggling teams need to be able to get some. They need some luck. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the Browns, the Browns every year back then were bad, and they were getting the first overall pick, and it was their fault that they fucked it up. Like if they picked the wrong guy, that's their fault. The league
Yeah.
gave them an opportunity to pick one of the best players, and if they fumbled, that's their fault, right?
I think the
Um,
bust percentage in the NBA is a lot lower than in the NFL. Like,
yeah,
because in the NBA, it's like there's busts, but almost every year it's like, okay, this guy's the one. He's going to come in. He's going to be really good.
yeah,
Like maybe he gets hurt his rookie year, like Chet Holmgren, he got hurt his rookie year. That's fine. But
yeah.
like in the NFL, I mean, you can take Zach Wilson too. People were excited about that pick. Completely horrible.
No, yeah,
Eh,
just unplayable. I mean, he couldn't even see the field last year. So I don't know. That's the draft lottery. One thing that I think we both agree on is I think that the NBA's rule that you can go pro 1 year after high school, I think that's a good rule, and I think that should apply to the NFL. Maybe not 1 year necessarily, that's 2 years, but I think this 3 year crap where you have to play in college for 3 years, I think it's just dumb. I think a lot of guys can play in the NFL after year two in college. We gave the example, Marvin Harrison would have been a great player out of his sophomore year of college. And again, not every player, but not every player goes pro after their junior year in college either. So
Yeah.
if you are good enough and you and your agent talk about it, make that decision, jump to the NFL. I don't think you should be limited to play 3 years in college. The NBA, you have to play 1 year. Well, you don't have to play in college, but you have to have 1 year post high school.
What about just throwing something out there? Let's say, you've played 1 year or 2 years or whatever. What if there was a rule where like you could be drafted? It was more like the MLB, right? Because the MLB, you don't apply for the draft, right?
I think you
Like,
like put your name in,
I mean,
but like
yeah,
you
like
could
you
still
can put your
stay in
name in.
high school or college. Because a lot of teams, what happens is you get
You'll get
drafted,
drafted, then they go to college.
yeah, or like you're committed to play college, and the NMLB team will be like, we'll pay you more to come play for us than to go to Florida or
Yeah.
Vanderbilt or whatever. Yeah,
Like, what if a team could just be like, you put your name in, hey, I'm interested in going to the NFL. Not
right,
as in term of I'm giving up my college eligibility, but if you get drafted round one, then you're able to go pro. So
right,
it could be something where like Marvin Harrison is good enough, so it wouldn't screw people over. Because
yeah,
I think something that screws people over in the NBA is the one and done, right? Guys
yeah,
go 1 year in college, then they're like, I'm done, I gotta go pro. They get drafted in the second round and they kind of get screwed because they
yeah,
can't continue, developing their game. If in football, what if you could play 2 years or whatever, a year, 2 years, and you'd be like, hey, I'm interested in going. If someone drafts me round one, I'll go pro. No one drafts me, that's fine. I'll go play my third year. And maybe you don't ever end up being a first round pick, but you at least have that option. So there are those guys that are quarterbacks or certain players that, again, it wouldn't be very many. It would be like maybe one guy a year that is clearly going to be a first round pick, like Bijan a year ago would
yeah,
have been a first round pick.
exactly. Yeah, Caleb Williams right now would have been a first round pick.
Would have been the first overall pick,
I would
probably.
even say Caleb Williams and Drake May would have been first round picks this draft.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like allowing them to just be like, hey, if you want to draft me in the first round, I'll come and play. But if I'm not drafted in the first round, I can't go to the NFL.
yeah.
I have to return to college or something like that to allow so they don't get screwed out of being able to play college football.
And
Where
like
they,
some MLB guys, what they'll do is they'll get drafted in the seventh round, right? I know this
yeah,
happened with Nico Horner. I'm gonna make up a number. I think he got drafted in like the eighth round.
yeah,
Played a year at Stanford, was awesome. Then the Cubs took him in the first round of the next year's draft. So it's like, okay, he stayed a year college, drastically improved his draft stock,
mm-hmm.
made a lot more on his signing bonus, everything like that. So shout out to Nico Horner, by the way, MLB's best second baseman. We're not gonna get into that though. But I think that would be a great idea. And then I think the final thing that we're going to talk about that the NBA does, I think, better than any sports league in the world is they promote their superstars. The NFL doesn't have as big of a problem with this as like baseball does, but I think that they're lacking in this department as well. The NBA gets posted anytime a player breathes. The ESPN's posting it, Bleacher Report's posting it, Sports Center's posting it. All of these things are posting it. They're talking about these guys, what they're doing, where they're going on vacation, yada yada, everything they're talking about. They have all of these guys have signature shoes. They have clothing brands. They have this. The NBA superstar. If you're an NBA like superstar player, you're a household celebrity. I mean, you just are. And I think the NFL can do a much better job of promoting their stars to the world and showcasing the human side of their stars like the NBA does.
Yeah,
So,
I think people watch not for the team but for the player in the NBA.
mhm.
And I think there are some players where people should watch just to watch that player. Maybe the team sucks, right?
Yeah.
But hey, maybe you should go watch this player. And, you know, like, I mean, trying to think of an NBA team, right? Like a team that didn't make the playoffs this year. Like I think OKC didn't make the playoffs, right? So it's like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. People are like watching SGA.
Yeah.
Whereas other teams, you know, people weren't watching the Nuggets.
No.
Nuggets are in the NBA Finals right now. People didn't know that Nikola Jokic is unreal.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't want to watch him.
Yeah.
And in the NFL, how often, right? Like the Chicago Bears,
Fields.
Fields is a perfect example of like people just don't know. And you see it on these talk shows that they clearly don't know what they're talking about. And
Fields
like,
kept me watching Bears games for the. I mean, he's what made it like doable for the whole year.
Exactly.
So I don't know, but I think that's some of the things that the NFL can do as good as the NBA does. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this episode. Makana, thank you for joining. Thank you for coming on. I love it when you are joining my show with me. You know, I'm always a fun. It's always a fun time with the two of us. I look forward to doing more videos with you soon, maybe very soon. Wink, 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 wink. But I will see you later. Thanks for coming on, and have a good rest of your day, man. And thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace out.